WNBA, they look at these players like a joke. To be fair, why shouldn't they? These players are demanding 30% of league revenue prior to expenses being paid. The players that have never driven in viewership, the players that have never brought in attendance, the players that have never...
January 9th, 2025 came and went quietly, but its significance cannot be overstated. That was the day the previous collective bargaining agreement officially expired. From that moment forward, the league and its players entered what's known as status quo. That means the old rules remain in effect while negotiations continue. On paper, that sounds orderly. In reality, it's a pressure cooker, because the season is still scheduled to begin on May 8th. That leaves a narrow window to complete an extraordinary list of tasks. Expansion drafts must be held for Portland and Toronto. More than 100 unrestricted free agents need to be signed. The 2026 rookie draft must be organized. Training camps must open. Schedules must be finalized. Arenas must be booked. Broadcast partners must be locked in. This isn't just a ticking clock. It's a countdown with consequences. And the most alarming part? The two sides are barely communicating. This entire standoff began nearly 15 months ago when players publicly announced their decision to opt out of the 2020 CBA. That announcement was polished, coordinated, and powerful. Star players stood shoulder to shoulder declaring, "We deserve more." It was designed to project unity and leverage. Many observers believed it marked the start of tough but productive negotiations. Instead, it marked the beginning of a prolonged stalemate. What we're witnessing now feels less like collective bargaining and more like a high-stakes game of chicken. Each side believes the other will be forced to swerve. The players believe the league can't afford another labor disruption during a moment of unprecedented visibility. The owners believe the players can't afford to lose paychecks, momentum, or expansion opportunities. Neither side wants to be the first to compromise. And as the calendar flips closer to May, the risk increases that no one will move until it's almost too late.
In just over 100 days, on May 8th, the 2026 WNBA season is set to tip off with 3 games. Between now and then, the league needs to hold a 2-team expansion draft for the Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo. More than 100 unrestricted free agents need to sign contracts. And the 2026 rookies need to be drafted to their teams. Most importantly, the league and players need to agree on a collective bargaining agreement, a process 15 months in the making, since the players union decided to put out a hype tape, a hype video of them saying, "We deserve more. We're opting out." As the deadline passed on January 9th, the sides ushered in a period called status quo, where the conditions of the 2020 deal...
The stalemate makes more sense once you understand what's actually being asked. From the owner's perspective, the players' proposals all boil down to the same core demand, regardless of how the language changes. 30% of gross revenue. Not net revenue. Gross. That distinction matters enormously. Gross revenue is calculated before expenses, before travel costs, before marketing, before housing, before arena rentals, before production, staffing, insurance, and operations. The players are asking for their share to be calculated before any of the league's bills are paid. From the owner's perspective, this is a non-starter. In contrast, the league's offer centers on 70% of net revenue averaged over the life of the agreement. To casual fans, that might sound worse, but net revenue is calculated after essential operating costs and before profits are distributed. For a league that has lost money for 28 consecutive years, that distinction is everything. 28 years, nearly 3 decades. That's not a talking point. That's a financial reality. The WNBA has never been consistently profitable on its own. It has survived through subsidies, support from the NBA, and long-term investment in growth rather than immediate returns. Owners view the current proposal as asking them to absorb even more risk while the league is still stabilizing. From their perspective, the players are negotiating as if they're part of a mature billion-dollar enterprise, rather than a league that just recently began seeing sustained growth.
Says no. The players send in that same proposal. The league says, you guys aren't serious. This had to be an accident, right? They mean to send over the same proposal that they just sent, so we'll wait for the real one. This is like, you ask a girl out, she says no, then you come back and say, "Hey, you want to go to dinner?" It's totally not a date. Did I just tell you no? Oh, this is like the kid asking their parents, "Hey, can I get a toy?" No. "Hey, can I get a Lego?" Wait, didn't I just say you can't get a toy? But since you're changing the words from toy to Lego, now you think I'm suddenly...
That laugh wasn't casual. It wasn't offhand. It wasn't just someone brushing off a question. That laugh was a message. It told everyone paying attention exactly where these negotiations stand right now. On one side, you have WNBA players making demands they believe reflect their worth. On the other, you have owners who don't even feel compelled to respond anymore. Not with a counteroffer, not with a rejection, not even with a formal acknowledgement. Just silence. And silence in negotiations is rarely accidental. It has now been more than a month since the WNBA Players Association submitted its most recent collective bargaining proposal. 30 full days have passed. In labor negotiations, that kind of delay isn't neutral. It's strategic. According to multiple league sources, the reason for the radio silence is simple. The proposal didn't meaningfully change. From the owner's perspective, there was nothing new to discuss. The players believe they are negotiating. The owners believe they are being tested. From a league side, the thinking reportedly goes like this. If the players are going to keep sending variations of the same demands, there's no incentive to engage. No leverage has shifted. No new concessions have been offered. And until that happens, responding only validates a position the owners have already decided they won't accept. That's why the lack of response feels so pointed. It's not indecision. It's dismissal. League insiders say the owners are essentially waiting for the players to get serious. That phrase might sound insulting, but it reflects a broader power imbalance that has existed since the WNBA's founding. The owners believe they control the clock, the calendar, the infrastructure, and ultimately, the existence of the league itself. From the players' perspective, the silence feels like disrespect, like their demands are being laughed out of the room without being addressed on their merits. But from the owner's perspective, responding to the same proposal over and over again would signal weakness. This stalemate isn't just about money. It's about who blinks first. And right now, the owners are betting the players will blink long before opening night.
A big part of the reason this stalemate is that the sides still do not see eye to eye on how revenue sharing will work under a new agreement. The league has proposed a system where players would receive on average 70% of net revenue over the lifetime of the agreement, while the players have proposed receiving 30% of gross revenue. Sources have indicated to ESPN that owners are unlikely to significant yield on the revenue sharing position, though there is wiggle room at the cost of other expenses they incur under the players' current proposal. The league has stated its priorities are not only to increase player compensation, but amid an opportunity to shift from decades of operating at a loss to sustained profitability, to also incentivize owners to continue investing. Decades of operating at a loss. Let me take a sip out of my coffee.
Housing has emerged as the one area where compromise might actually be possible. No major North American men's league provides season-long housing. Even the NWSL is phasing it out by 2027, with protections only for lower-paid players. The WNBA appears open to a tiered system. Housing for rookies, housing for international players, housing for non-guaranteed contracts, but not housing for veterans earning $200,000 or stars on max deals. That approach mirrors how other leagues balance support with financial reality. One player told ESPN that housing remains a priority, particularly for those on non-guaranteed contracts and international players. That acknowledgement is significant. It suggests an understanding that not all benefits need to be universal. The resistance from the league isn't mysterious. It's financial. Paying rent for players earning six figures in major markets adds costs the league struggles to absorb. This is where real compromise could happen if both sides accept that equality doesn't always mean sameness.
Quote, housing remains a priority for all. Housing for all players remains a priority, especially for those on non-guaranteed contracts and international players. One player told ESPN, but I think this is one of the toughest issues for the league for whatever reason. Now we compare this to others. The NFL, NBA, NHL, MLS, and MLB do not provide season-long housing for players. The NWSL has a plan to phase out team-provided housing by 2027. Now here we go. But that plan has stipulations for players who didn't have high salaries and or are in expensive markets. In a deal for the WNBA CBA, expect to see a similar type of compromise when it comes to salary and market variability.
ESPN outlined 4 possible paths toward a deal, but the first and most important is shared understanding of revenue value. Right now, that understanding doesn't exist. Players argue their labor drives the product, that without them, there's no league. Asia Wilson summed it up bluntly when she said the 30% demand represents our value. But value in professional sports is not philosophical. It's economic. NBA players receive roughly 50% of basketball-related income because the NBA generates more than $10 billion annually and operates at massive profit. That gives players leverage. The WNBA generated approximately $200 million in revenue in 2024. That was a record year, fueled largely by one factor, Caitlin Clark. Attendance, viewership, and merchandise spiked dramatically. Yet, even in that best year ever, analysts estimate the league still operated at a loss once NBA subsidies were factored out. So when players argue for a revenue split modeled after far larger leagues, owners push back by pointing to the data. 2 strong years out of 28 does not fundamentally change the financial structure of the league. From the owner's view, the players are negotiating based on potential rather than proven sustainability.